The Bad Batch, Episode 14, Flash Strike. Clone Force 99 successfully make it to Wayland after hitching a ride on an Imperial science vessel. But as it just so happens, their covert operation doesn't stay a secret for very long, as Hemlock is alerted by Scorch right from the get-go that the Bad Batch along with Rampart have infiltrated the relay station and are now making their way to Tantus off of the science vessel, whose security may have also been breached, and wow. I did not expect the episode to kick things off like this, with the Batch's mission already compromised before they even set foot on Mount Tantus. And if anything, I'm impressed by how competent the Empire is by already being made aware of the Batch's mission, as, let's be honest, this would not have been the case in another show like, say, Rebels. I'm only now curious how they knew that it was Rampart and the Batch on the relay station, as from what I remember, none of them had their identities found out, so I can only assume that maybe the security cameras caught them? And if so, that only adds to my criticism of last episode with the Batch choosing willingly not to wear TK disguises, because as I mentioned before, they stood out so much. As for Rampart, I figured with him wearing a different rank and the longer hair as well the facial hair, he wouldn't have been noticed so quickly, but either way, this reveal certainly did make things more suspenseful, as the Batch are soon intercepted by fighters upon entering Wayland's atmosphere, which in turn forces them to crash near Tantus base and continue on foot. And sure, while this seems only another day at the office for Hunter, Wrecker, and Crosshair, Rampart on the other hand makes it full well known that he's not built for this kind of thing. Which is fair, as the guy has no physical military training whatsoever, much less special commando training, so this is to be expected. But yeah, his shrieks throughout this sequence were hilarious. He even has his life saved by Hunter in the process, which did kind of surprise me given the fact that the mission has been compromised and the base is on full alert, so Rampart isn't really of much use to the Batch at this point. As well, afterwards, when asked by Wrecker if Rampart had survived the landing, Hunter responded with, "Unfortunately, yes." Which, while funny, sure, but I mean, if Hunter really sees Rampart having died as the fortunate scenario, then why even bother saving him in the first place? Regardless, they're soon hunted down by stormtrooper patrols throughout the jungle, making their mission to get into the base all that much more difficult. Meanwhile, inside the base, Omega decides to take advantage of the distraction outside to scout out her planned escape route and finds the Zillo Beast in an underground enclosure. And I gotta admit, I completely forgot about the Zillo Beast being kept on Mount Tantus. And now knowing this, I think it's pretty safe to say that the Zillo Beast will be an obvious Chekhov's gun here, as I could see the Beast and potentially some liberated clones being the so-called cavalry mentioned in the finale's title, with also maybe Rex's forces being more of an extraction team arriving later on. As for Echo, he remains off of the Empire's radar and even does the smart thing by using some TK armor as a disguise, which, to be fair, does look a bit funny on him as he's missing a hand and all. But hey, at least he does end up solving that little problem by taking out a protocol droid and then using that droid's hand before making his way into the main base undetected. Still would be pretty strange to see a stormtrooper walking around with a droid hand, but unless you're really paying attention, then I guess you can get away with it. Back in the jungle, Rampart accidentally awakens a large, furry Dryax, which sees it attack the Batch while Rampart runs away in absolute fear. It's a whole other scene playing on Rampart's cowardice and just the absolute contrast between him and the Batch. But as expected, the dynamic between them all is funny and keeps things interesting from your usual run-of-the-mill Clone Force 99 mission. And things do work out for the Batch as they end up using the Dryax as a distraction with the Imperial Patrol unit. But not so much for Rampart, who instead gets separated from the others and then sees himself getting captured. Well, that's a bit of a bummer. As I said before, I don't really see Rampart surviving the show, and with him under Imperial custody again, this only lowers whatever chance at survival he did have. Finally, Echo continues his infiltration at Tantus base and ends up encountering Emerie Carr, who knew full well who he was, and rather than squealing on him to Hemlock, she instead agrees to help after telling Echo about the other children being held with Omega, which surprises Echo. Bit of a quick turn for her, as I was expecting a bit more resistance. You know, seeing how loyal she's been to Hemlock this entire season, probably her entire life? But on the flip side, it was neat to see Echo and Emerie meet face to face for the first time, as they're basically foils of each other. Seeing as they'll be working together inside the base now, we can only assume that if one of them falls, so will the other. Overall, this was a very good and thrilling episode that kept you engaged from start to finish, and really? What else should we expect from the penultimate series finale? My one and only gripe with it was not really something with the episode itself, but more so rather with the length, which was an incredibly disappointing runtime of only 21 minutes, and that's with the intro, recap, and credits included. Because of this, the episode felt like it just ended abruptly and left me hanging for more. And not in the good way. Not to mention, this also has me worried for next week's series finale, as there's no way they can cram so much into a 25-minute episode, and even if they try, like to show us Omega's escape with the kids, unleashing the Zillo Beast, having the batch actually get into the base, Echo and Emerie's plan into action, the fates of each member of the batch, Hemlock, Scorch, Dr. Sadler, Omega, and even Rampart. Not to mention too, a very likely boss encounter with CX2, as well Rex and his boys somehow entering into the equation as well. I mean, yeah, maybe they can try, but not only will it feel incredibly rushed, but as well not come to anything close to a satisfying ending. So seriously, I can only hope that I'm wrong here, and instead of a 25-minute episode, give us an hour or an hour and a half finale, and we should be good. And that was my take on this episode of The Bad Batch. Let me know what you all thought about the episode in the comments below, and if you haven't already, remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel for more, and I'll see you on the next one.